It's got a good energy to this place. So yeah, I decided that I had the time. I had some friendships that could be monumental in pushing the work forward. Specifically, at least initially, Yoshi, who's one of my closest friends, and we've been friends for well over a decade, and I was volunteering.
Wait a minute, man. Wait a minute. Whoa, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
You look like you're about 29 years old.
Thank you. I turned 41 this month.
God, what the hell happened to you? You stopped in time?
I don't know what it is. I just
You
blessed
look good.
with good genes. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So do you. How old are you?
39 plus.
Yeah.
I'm 74.
Come on.
Seriously.
Come on.
Seriously.
You're doing a lot better than I am. let's not joke.
Seriously.
You look great.
74. Keep on going, man. Tell us. We want to know about you, how you got this stuff started.
So yeah, it's really, I'd love to take credit for it, but all the credit I think deserves to go to Yoshi. Yoshi has been doing this work in the community in a different way for over 40 years, just
Yes,
with
she
adults. And
a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, exactly. And she's quite an inspiration to me in the community at large. And so I was thinking of building a reading and writing center similar to 826 Valencia, who I was volunteering with in the mission about 15 years ago or so. And which actually kind of contributed to the name 51 Oakland. I was thinking about numbers, but we were talking about trying to open something in Oakland back then, and it never really got off the ground. And I was talking to Yoshi one day, and she says, well, we should do something together. And once she said that, my brain started going in 20 different directions, and then I realized I could take a similar concept and revolve it around art and music, which is obviously a huge part of the fabric of the Bay Area. It's so important, and especially Oakland.
You're a giant, you know that?
A giant?
You're a giant.
Oh, no.
Yes, you are. Because you know what? Let me tell you something. We were just talking about the conditions right now, and especially with the political structure the way it is right now, people like you are needed very much. You agree with that, Eyez?
Yes.
You guys switch the mic.
Oh.
Yes. We're having technical difficulties today, so just so you know, if it takes me a while to answer back, that's why.
Yeah, so tell me some of the things you've done before you started all this. I'm looking at Caracas. What did you do? Sports editor and travel writer for a newspaper in Caracas?
Yeah.
You've been around.
I've been around, and I think, mostly I was born here in California, but I moved to Atlanta before I turned 1. And so that, and then when I was 12 or 13 or so, I moved back to California. So crossing that great divide from the south to the west and going, seeing the differences, say, between living in Atlanta, and I moved to Moraga, which is the opposite of diversity. Certainly becoming more diverse now, but it was a different world to me, and so it gave me this confidence that I could really go anywhere and make a life for myself. And I also realized that I wasn't so comfortable in Moraga, or as comfortable there as I was in Atlanta, where I was just a kid. And so the life seeped into me, the diversity seeped into me. I grew up with all kind of folks, and it was a huge blessing. One, because I'm a white man with privilege, like all white men have, and I was just blessed to grow up, one, with wonderful parents, and two, a really messed up society that doesn't always treat everybody fairly. And then I had the privilege, at least of a small sliver of prejudice, growing up as a Jew. I'm not religious or a practicing Jew, but my parents are Jewish, and being a Jew in the South was similar to being a black man in the South, except I could hide. Nobody really knew.
That's truth.
Yeah.
That is real truth.
So it kind of gave me, I grew up with a lot of anger. I knew that I was different. I felt like I was treated as subhuman. Even to this day, I still feel it. Not to, the experience of minorities here, but I had that small experience, which gave me a taste of what it might feel like to really have to deal with that on an ongoing daily basis. And
let me tell you something. I was 14, and I used to shine shoes at a barber shop in downtown LA. Well, the owner of the whole block, except the tire company, was named Kapalovitz.
Yeah.
Old Jewish name. And so he put his son out there with me on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday shining shoes. And this guy's a millionaire. Okay? And I'm wondering, what is this all about? And as life and time transcended on, you learn that all people are the same no matter what. You know, and that kid shine shoes for 50 cents an hour, 35 cents, whatever. We started partnering up and running a game about who would start off and who would end up. And we would make something like $6 a day after 9 or 10 hours. Okay. And then he went on to go to some of the premier colleges. And he and I, you know, butted heads over the years until he passed, you know. But it was like a friendship that never was. And this is what we try to get here from this station. And this is why when I look at your stuff, you know, I'm very proud of you as a human being. You know, and right now the Jews are just under fire just like everybody else. You know, we have to look at that. You know, and I look at the fact that you're doing all these things and it's from your heart. You know, that's what I'm talking about. And how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, I think the selfish part of it is that, you know, for us to be truly happy, or at least my interpretation of happiness, is that we have to be in some way in service of others. Otherwise, it's a tough thing to achieve. You know, we can get fooled by feeling pleasure all the time, but it's not a lasting thing. And so, one, I'm very passionate about it, this work. I'm passionate about kids. I've worked as a teacher, as a mentor, as a counselor before, and it makes me really sad that we're failing our children in all kinds of ways.
Yes.
And this is a problem of adults. And
yes.
So, you know, in this lifetime that we have, I mean, I think it's important to try and make some sort of impact, whether it be small, big, or what have you. And I don't think I can go through this life without having a substantial chunk of it in service of those that are typically voiceless. And so it's just part of my upbringing. I think, you know, we're all kind of, you know, we're all shaped by our experiences and how we show up in this world. And I was lucky in that regard, but I also was cognizant enough to realize that I could utilize my privilege in a way to help, you know, the greater society. And especially seeing, you know, whether it be just on a small impact on a school or one child or one school district, you know, trying not to get overwhelmed by the broader issues and systemic issues that exist and the inequities that are so prevalent in our society, but just work with these kids in Oakland, throughout the Bay Area, and try to change their lives. And when we focus on the kids, it makes the work seem less daunting. And we're, you know, both myself and Yoshi's an example of it. Yoshi, if she didn't have music and art in her life, she's a World War II orphan that lost her parents. Her dad was killed in a Siberian war camp. Her mother died of tuberculosis. The last time she saw her was at a train station when she was 5. So here we have this little Japanese woman at the age of 5, alone in post-World War II Japan. And now she owns one of the most famous clubs in the world.
Yeah.
And she's been alone, and it's this art and music that has really provided her with the substance to persevere and to continue living. I mean, at an early age, she thought of taking her life, and without being a dancer, I think she would admit that she would be long gone by now. But it's art that's kept her alive, and now she wants to, and she's been providing nightly music for the Bay Area every single night for, gosh, almost 40 years now.
42 years. Yeah.
And so she's a huge inspiration. Like, what would happen if Yoshi didn't have art in her life? Which I doubt she would be here. And, you know, Yoshi's likely would not exist. And so many people have been affected by that jazz club, whether that be the musicians, the community itself, as well as kids now, because we involve kids on stage through our work with 51Oakland.
You know, I got an inkling of her 20 years ago as a community activist, very quietly as a community activist. And Yoshi's has been around a pretty good bit of time. One of the things I really liked was the positive attitude and air that I have heard people speak of her. Never anything negative, always positive, always good. And, you know, in our society we have these misplaced priorities, I call them, you know. And I think that's one of the things that you as a human being, I'm looking at all your stuff, you know, priorities are very important in our lives. Where we put things, how we put, but also in our lives we have this thing called negative aggression of, you know, and it tends to destroy things. So therefore you have to be a highly positive person to actually motivate yourself when you are a single parent or you have, you know, a man or a woman in the house. There are a lot of single fathers right here. And this is one of the things that we're grateful for you to come in today and to tell us your story and to put it out there, because you know what? You're, like I said, you're a gentle giant.
I appreciate it.
I don't know about the gentle part.
You're too kind for me, to me, but I appreciate that. And, you know, I have to reiterate is that, you know, I'm just a small piece of a big team that has really been doing a lot of this work. And so, you know, alone, it's really hard for us to do anything. And so
Right.
it takes kind of the sum of all parts to make all this happen. And so I have to acknowledge, you know, Yoshi, you know, all the Escobedos, Sheila, Juan, Peter, Michael, Pops, Moms.
We had him on our show 2.5 years ago.
Which one?
The old man.
Oh, Pops.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
should have him again. He's coming out with his memoir next
Yeah, I saw that.
in July. And he's got 4 shows at Yoshi's in July. I think it's July 15th and 16th. And he's going to be coming out with his memoir for the first time at those shows. So I'm sure he'd love to talk about his book, but you want to have him back.
Oh yeah.
You got that right.
And that man, I mean, he's a wonderful man. He was the first person, you know, when Yoshi and I started this work, we didn't want to try to reinvent the wheel. And we just really wanted to build our programming around the needs. And so we put all the public school teachers in the same room and said, here we are, you know, we have connections to artists, we have this beautiful jazz club here, tell us how we can support you in your work. And the first request that came was for Pete Escobedo to perform with 150 kids at the Oakland Tech Jazz Festival.
Wow.
And so Pops was the first person we called, the first bit of work that we did in the community, which was hugely successful. The event was fantastic. But then, you know, now we're talking 8 years later, and, you know, through those years, I've gotten to know the whole family. You know, Sheila, E, and I have partnered along with Yoshi and Lynn Mabry to create Elevate Oakland, which is now in its 3rd year at McClymonds High School, building a music program that hasn't existed for over 12 years. And so the family has just been deeply embedded in this work, but also a part of the fabric of Oakland. You know, I consider them royalty in Oakland and in the Bay Area in general. Just the family's so big; they've got cousins and aunts and uncles coming out of the woodwork. You know, it's a huge family, and it's they're a big part of what we do.
Okay, I want to ask you something. When you do things like this, we want you to tell the public where the money source comes from. Donations, is that critical?
Yeah, donations are critical.
And you want to put some numbers out there and tell the public how to donate?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we recently soft launched the 510 campaign, and you know, it's tough for people these days to be able to afford to give to all these different causes, and so what we created is as little as $5.10 a month can go a long way. Especially if we
Wait a minute, whoa, back up.
Yeah.
$5.10.
Yes.
Okay, ladies out there, that ain't one fingernail. How much it costs to get the fingernails done? About $60.
60.
Uh-huh.
I don't pay 60 for my nails.
How much does it cost?
Okay, well, let's get to the point. Okay, it's about $30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about $30 to get a pedicure, manicure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And sometimes it depends on where you go to.
Yep.
You can get your nails a manicure for $7, but that's hard to find. So it's like $10.
Because I was getting a pedicure, believe it or not.
Everybody needs a pedicure nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lady said my feet were sexy.
Oh,
She did.
wow.
Most of us paying about $60 every time we go.
About $60. I saw her charge the lady $70 because she put the gold on the finger and,
Oh,
and
Oh,
the
the
underlay
extras.
things
Yeah.
and the designs. And
I
all
don't
that
like
stuff.
nickel and diamond.
You know,
No.
but that's what it was. But anyway, $5.10.
Yeah, I mean, if people can afford more, great, but just a little gesture like that can go a long way. So most of our funding is through private donations. We do get some foundation dollars, but I think we're now trying to transition to create more infrastructure within the organization. Up until now, we've been a 100% volunteer organization, which is a really beautiful thing to be able to say, is that all your money is going to go towards the work. But we're now getting a little bit too big for that and really need to create the infrastructure that can sustain this beyond both Yoshi and myself. And part of that sustainability is getting monthly contributions. So whether it's $5.10, whether it's $25 a month, anybody that can afford to do so would help not only sustain our work, but be able to scale it. We're currently at in a position right now where we have a 10-school waiting list.
Wow.
Requesting our programs, and in all 10 schools, none of them had music or art during the school day.
What happened to that?
Well, I mean, I think it's a long story that starts even maybe.
I have never heard of
Yeah.
a school without music and art.
Oh, well, there's many these days. I mean, a lot of, based on the funding cuts, Oakland Unified has its own history over the last 3 decades, and all the programs, I think, were cut in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, where everything was just scrapped.
He's actually right, you guys. I grew up in a house of music teachers. My auntie is a music teacher. My other auntie, my mom. She's a regular teacher and a music teacher, and I have another auntie who worked for Berkeley Public Schools, so Oakland and Berkeley. So he's actually right. So I'm just letting everybody know he knows what he's talking about. I'm passing the mic back. Okay.
Thank you, Eyez. I appreciate that endorsement. That's
Yeah.
a good endorsement to have.
Industrial arts, music, and all the structured stuff that took the attention of kids away from what they were going through is gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are definitely some really good programs that have been built back up, some
Right.
wonderful teachers, but it's not across the board, and that's where the issue lies in our minds, is that, we believe that every student, every child should have access to art and music education, not just for some, but everyone, and it's a bit lopsided as we see in public education these days.
I was a failure in music.
Well, you can't technically fail it.
I did. I failed. I failed music.
If you don't
Yeah.
enjoy music, then in that sense you fail. You can't. I mean, of course there's technical aspects of it, but if you sing it just to feel good or playing an instrument just to feel good, then you're not really failing.
You know what I did? They gave me a violin. Could you imagine? I'm going, what's this thing?
That's funny. They gave Sheila E. a violin to start too.
Yeah.
And she, getting made fun of the streets of East Oakland. She lost that real quick.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah, she was getting made fun of this little violin. Imagine Sheila E. walking down the street and she, turned to drums eventually. Obviously, watching.
Look at the outcome.
Yeah, pretty good
Well,
outcome.
I thought I was going to be a singer.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with Eyez is that you can't really fail in music because it's really not something, part of the work is one, if kids are interested in music, to have it during the school day will get them to show up to school.
That thing was a challenge. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Showing up to school or
The violin
oh, the violin.
and the harassment.
Right, so you felt it too.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not a cool
Damn
instrument
right.
to kids.
Oh no, You know, because I learned to draw early on, and while the teacher was sitting up there teaching music, I was drawing 59 Corvettes. You know, sitting there drawing a whole. I did a portrait of one of my music teachers, you know, and she cried when I gave it to her when I graduated. You know.
So you did not fail art.
No, art is not that hard with me.
And so, yeah, I mean, but that's you know.
It was the social stigma of a violin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I have never experienced that. I used to play the cello.
Oh.
So I used to play a lot of instruments.
Uh-huh.
I got bullied for a lot of things, but playing the cello wasn't one of them. And one of the girls in my class played the violin. Everybody liked her. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Wow. Did they teach you how to play pepperoni pizza?
If you would have heard me, you would have ran.
I'm sure I would have been the same way.
Where are we going? Where are we going with your organization, and what are some of the things that you plan to do in the future?
Well, we want to be able to service more schools, and so that's the goal. Is that we just, you know, I feel like we're just on the brink of making a major impact within, you know, one school district. And if we can get that right, then we can then move to different school districts. I mean, that's been our ultimate goal. But to really get it right in such a complex environment as that we're in right now, and in society, as well as it's mirrored in public education and private education, and how that affects families, kids, our community. You know, all these things play a part into it's a very moving world. And so how do we become consistent when everything is changing around us, or things are bouncing from one thing to the next, and as the adults are trying to figure out what's best for our kids, our kids are still there.
Right.
They haven't gone anywhere. They're sitting in schools waiting almost. I mean, that's how we see it, is that we need to get to work now. And so we figured out a process where we can fit into any school, whether it be elementary, middle school, or high school, and create an impact through our mentorship and resident artist program. And that's really easy to kind of mold into any situation. And in many times, these mentors, these professional artists, and we're using really hip, cool artists that resonate with these kids. I think it's a big difference of what we do compared to a lot of organizations. They get great musicians, but we're not really trying to create musicians. We're trying to, you know, serve the whole child. You know, it's not just musicianship, but it's more mental health. It's like, these are areas, there's areas in Oakland and all over San Francisco, the Bay Area, and the world, what seems like insurmountable amounts of trauma that these kids and families deal with every day. And so having an hour to play music, listen to music, to share, it has tremendous benefits to mental health.
Could you call this a pleasant psychological diversion?
Sure, that sounds good to me. What do you think, Eyez? You like that?
I guess so. You know, he's very interesting with his words.
Seriously.
But yeah, I mean, for me, like, I'm just even thinking about what sports meant to me as a kid. 'Cause here I came into this world with everything handed to me. I'm white, growing up in America. You know, I've got these two wonderful parents that are in service, a civil rights attorney, a doctor of public health, whose focus is on ethics. And so I really got to mess myself up to go down the wrong path.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I actually didn't grow up with sports. But as an adult, I do now see and understand what sports did for a person. Because when I started taking karate, I noticed just walking down the street, I just felt more confident. It's not about beating people up. It's about having confidence so people don't come at you wrong, you know? So, and I understand that. So, and I guess that also broadens my understanding to music. You know, it's harder to explain because I'm a professional musician. It's just, when I hear about music, that's just my life. But if sports can do that to me as an adult, then music can work
You're
wonders.
listening to Thoughts of a Common Man with Charles Achieve Williams on Radio Valencia, the sounds of the mission.
And we got Jason Hofmann here, And we want you to tell people where they can send you some dollars.
You can go to our website, www.51oakland.org. That's the easiest way. We have a donate tab. You can make small monthly donations, large donations, one-time donations, as much as you want. That's the easiest way to do it. And I can tell you that all of your money is going to be going towards the work with these kids. All of our leadership is unpaid. We do this because we care. We join forces because we realize that as a whole, we're much greater than any individual. And so we're just blessed to have a bunch of leaders in the Bay Area that have come together to provide this resource for kids. But we do need the public to get involved, as we receive no financing from the district, the state, the government. We're fully funded by individuals and foundations.
Well, this is the thing about today, is the fact that, they're rescinding a lot of funds to ancillary organizations like yours. They're actually cutting the funds off in this new political machine that we have.
That's right.
And one of the things is I'm hearing from you is the fact that if you bring your child into one of these programs, if you be blessed to get in, and it actually offers structure to the person, because structure is what a lot of these kids are not getting. Am I right?
Yeah, they're not getting a lot of structure. There's a lot of changes happening.
Right.
Principals change every year, teachers change every year, and so that environment is not a healthy place for a child to be. There's this constant movement. And,
Man, they need me to be the principal. They need me to be the superintendent.
yeah,
Chief.
Seriously.
Yeah.
They need me to be the superintendent of Oakland City Schools.
Let's go for it. Let's go for it. No, we definitely need more of a light shown on what's happening at these schools during the school day.
Right.
Because our biggest problem in Oakland is we have a very high dropout rate. And-
56%
Yeah.
in the black community on the male side.
Yeah.
The girls are not as tenacious to get out of school.
Right.
They hang in there. We have something like a 67 to 69% of girls that graduate. That's a long way from 56%, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And so beyond, the consistency that we need to implement for our youth, I think through our work, it's, a lot of these kids, they have very little hope. And I say that in that, so everything's changing within the school system, everything that's interesting is being taken out. And so what motivates a child, say in East Oakland, to go to school when they can just be on the streets, maybe earn a little bit of money, help their family out? What is the motivation to go to school if we're not showing up for our kids as adults, as a school district? And I'm not trying to single out Oakland. I think this is a pervasive problem.
It's nationwide.
Throughout the
It's
country.
nationwide. Yeah, it is.
And so what I found is that our mentors, by being the consistent forces ourselves, our mentors such as Pops, Sheila E., Juan, Lettucey, Guapole, all these amazing artists that have come from the Bay Area, are the artists that we're working with that are going in and inspiring these kids, but also showing up consistently. And so all of a sudden they sit down and take a master class or have a talk with Sheila E., and she talks about her childhood growing up in the gangs, her life story, and where she is today. They see that, they feel it, they see it, and all of a sudden it kind of wakes them up and is like, gosh, well, she's from like 2 blocks away, and look where she's at. Why can't I make that happen for myself in whatever way I want to make it happen? And I think that's what we're seeing, is that these mentors are motivating these kids to believe that anything is possible, and anything is possible.
Wow. You just blew me away. You made me think something. Mentorship is important. This is grassroots, am I right?
Yeah.
This is grassroots.
Yes.
This is where we should start.
Well, I spent a lot of time trying to start on the opposite end, and it didn't go well. I kind of, it's tough when you get mired in the system. It's like a matrix in some way, and you never get closer to the actual why we're doing this. And so by starting, yes, from the ground up, including, I think, the idea of small donations, monthly donations, is part of, Obama's grassroots campaigns and
Sure.
his success in being
Sure.
able to raise money is that.
But I think a lot of people, I hope they hear this program to start out with, because we're here to bring to them exactly what you're saying verbatim. There is some people out there, there is hope, there is dignity, there is respect. We just got to get to the people. And you guys are one of these organizations that are putting this out to the public, which makes me feel pretty damn good.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to, feel that great about it at this point, knowing how much more work there is to do.
Yeah.
And so, I appreciate your kind comments, and it's really good to hear sometimes, because we all get caught up in the fact that we still know of all these schools and these kids without the opportunities
Right.
that some are getting, and so I think we're never quite satisfied until we're going to be able to provide, for all.
I just want to say, just one kid at a time. Because even as being an artist, like, we're kind of like that. Oh, we got to do the next. Like, you book one show, and then all of a sudden you're stressing yourself out over 5 more shows you haven't even booked yet. You know what I mean? But to be honest with you, it really just takes that one kid. I know there have been numerous times as a kid where somebody in particular may have motivated me as a singer. And I gotta be honest with you, none of those kids that were in my classes or in some of the groups that I was in Oakland Youth Chorus, none of them are professional singers. So, like, I really got benefited the most out of it. Now, am I gonna say that just because it's a hobby that doesn't count? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I really wanted to be there. Even working with Faye Carroll, like, she was one of the few people who actually really was a mentor to me. And I do have success over that. I still use some of what she taught me. And I got to be honest with you, I don't even use half the stuff she taught me because I'm still not to her level yet. But she taught us a lot of stuff about working with bands and, scatting, everything. When people hear me scat, they're like, what is she doing? Well, that's because I'm so far advanced. And I really wasn't the best in her class at scatting. But I'm just saying, sometimes, you help that one kid who's really gonna make it, who's really, with me, it took me years to get to where I am today. But even with the kids who don't maybe do it as a profession, they may not even understand that it's helping their whole life. Because even just to sing along to a song on the radio, if you're self-conscious about your voice, you're not going to want to sing or even dancing. I remember my dance teacher, and this was one of the only dance teachers, I think it was at Oakland High. She used to tell us, well, you guys don't want to dance to my choreography, but once you go to a party when you guys grow up and you can't dance, y'all are going to be like, I wish I took some dance classes. And she was right. Because every time I go to the dance, to the club, I look pretty good when I dance. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying. So, you guys seem to be doing a really great job within the community. And I just want to say, if you're just helping that one kid, just like focus on that. I'm not saying, it's bad to be a visionary and keep going out, but you guys are doing a really good job. And you have some greats behind you. You've got Yoshi, you've got Sheila E. You've got Pops. All of these people are great people to mentor young people. So you guys are, I don't know if we have any sound effects for a round of applause, but you guys are doing such a great job. Yay!
Thank you. I appreciate that. We all appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're going to put your numbers out there again for donations. And we appreciate the fact that you said $5.10. But if you can put $500 and $510 in, it'd be even better. And I know people out there, because I know all you guys got those Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and all that stuff sitting in your driveway. So you can give him $510.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Charles. I like that idea. Yeah, go to our website.
Think big.
Yeah, contribute what you can.
Yeah.
Just know the money is going for a good cause. It's all reaching the children. It's not getting caught up in administration or in that minutia. But yeah, that's the best way to contribute. You can, if you want to know directly exactly where your money is going to go to and make a donation, you can email me at jason@51oakland.org. Check out our website. We're currently touching about 25 schools a year and reaching over 3,000 kids a year. There's a lot more work to do, and I think what we really want to expand is our resident artist program, and that's one thing that we can implement in a moment's notice at a school, and that's the one program that we're getting an incredible amount of requests for. And so by helping us sustain in a way to give monthly donations, it allows us to commit to these schools. If we know X is coming in a month, it allows us to build without the, having to run around and figuring out how to dig up the money that we owe. As we're paying, and I have to mention too, and part of the concept behind this is that we have a tremendous respect for artists.
Right.
And so the money that is being raised is going to pay artists to do this work. And while artists are so underappreciated these days with the complexities of the industry, and
legalities in the industry.
Yeah, legalities, and it's so hard to make it, but we need artists in society. I mean, it's the heart, it's the soul of our society. It's certainly part of the fabric, as you know, in Oakland. Without art, I don't know what Oakland would be.
I know.
And so, I think it's important to say is that these artists are getting paid to do this work. Certainly those like Sheila and Pops and, some artists do this, donate all the time. But it is important for us to put this money into the artist's pocket. So one, they're appreciated for the work, and then it allows them to, help create an extra stream of income that I think is sorely needed for them to continue with their passions.
Hey, I want to throw one at you.
Sure.
Okay. Tell me what your stint in St. Thomas was like.
St. Thomas.
Yeah.
That was a trip. It was a trip, but it also formed, I think, the basis for 51Oakland is that I had a school I was teaching Spanish at, and I was also a college counselor, and I was living in Spain at the time. They had fired the Spanish teacher mid-year, and I had a friend of a friend who was teaching there, and they called me, hired me over the phone, and the principal says, well, we also don't have any sports here, and we're looking to hire an athletic director. Do you know anything about sports? I said, I know more about sports than I do about Spanish. And so I got there, and it was the most rundown school on the island. It had been 12 years since they've had any sports, and had been destroyed by one of the many hurricanes that flowed through those parts. And so I was able to, from day one, take a look at this school, which was pre-K through 12, Catholic school on the island. And the first year, we had an athletic eligibility rate of about 12%. There was no sports. I set up intramurals and then found out that their grades were not good. And so then had to pull them from sports. So the kids that could make it and made their grades work, I just bought shiny, cool kind of uniforms for them and had the intramurals going in the middle of school. So all these kids could see those kids playing and the nice gear that they had on. By year 3, we had a 96% eligibility rate.
Wow. So you spent 3 years there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we went from 0 to, I think, up to 16 different teams at the school.
Wow.
Basketball, flag football, baseball, softball, track and field, soccer.
Was that when you guys were still headbutting and played football? Were you leading with your head?
People are still leading with their head. That's the problem. When you get in that sport, it happens so quick. You're leading with your head without realizing it sometimes. But yeah, it's funny. In the Virgin Islands, though, the football field was so old and they didn't have field goal posts, and so you had to go for 2 every time. I mean, we're in the Virgin Islands. But
so coming back here in relation to being there, did that give you a different insight on life, and did that make you a better person? And did it give you a new vision about where you wanted to go? You talk about vision over and over and over. I heard you talk about vision. Does that give you a vision? Was that a basis for a different way of life? and a different projection in life.
Yeah, without question. I mean, I think part of it leading up to St. Thomas, I traveled extensively through about 60 or 70 countries. I had made some money when I was 22 with a business, and I decided that I wanted to see the world. I got addicted to this travel, and so I decided I would travel until my money ran out. So I was spending something like $5-10 a day, which you can do and live well in Africa or Central South America, as you know. And I wanted to run out of that money and see if I could make it work. And so that was a big part of my own personal process. Somebody that's been giving all these blessings by just showing up in this world, I wanted to see what I was made of when I had nothing in a foreign place by myself. And so I ran out of money in Venezuela. I got a job there. It gave me more confidence that I could do anything I wanted to do. And then
So what did you do there?
I was an editor of sports for a newspaper.
I saw that.
Yeah, and then I wrote travel stories. So all these stories that I'd write home through all these trips around, the world, I turned into articles, gave them my pictures, and they published them. Which calmed my mom down.
Little exposés in life. I think that's a good word. I desecrate the English language. I do.
You and me both. So we're in good company.
We're going to talk about St. Thomas.
St. Thomas. Yeah, so seeing in 3 years what having sports in the school did for academics and getting these kids who I knew very well because I was teaching them during the school days also, which allowed me to build a relationship with them and make sure I stayed on them to get their schoolwork done. But for a lot of people, including myself growing up, is I didn't really see that much value in education. Even though I had this great upbringing, I didn't want to go to school. It took sports to get me to show up. So I can't imagine the kids that are lacking the support that I received, in my house, in my community, to really push me to keep me in line. And then obviously having the bone, the carrot at the end, which was I just wanted to play ball. And so to see these kids transform their lives and then understand through that process that, gosh, I could really do this. It's less about sports, but it's more about, like you said, giving you the confidence. Is that, if you have a goal, and you set yourself to achieving that goal, when you see that through, it just leads to something else and it expands. And I think that's what I saw in St. Thomas with these kids. They went from literally not showing up, getting into fights every day. My first child, he was much bigger than me. My first student, 6'8", had never played organized basketball or volleyball.
Wow.
After 3 years, he got a full ride scholarship to play both.
Wow.
And he was a guy that was so shy.
And that could work on.
Changed his whole life, and
Yeah.
and it changed these kids during that period. What was tough for me is I couldn't live there anymore. It became too small. Like living on an island is a trip. It's can be a little suffocating after a while, and the drinking age down there is 18, so I'd start like going out. I run into my kids, and I'm just, this ain't right. But it ran its course. But I also had that feeling. I spent the last 3 months there trying to make sure that everything would fall apart when I left. And sometimes it just takes a handful of passionate people, but when they're gone, you don't know what's going to happen. The last thing you want to see is everything that you built kind of fall back to where it was.
People loving people and people communicating. We keep talking about that, am I right?
Yeah.
You seem to be kind of blessed to get around to have an open mind, which in our society today is not really the thing. People kind of sequester themselves into little corners of life, with their problems, and they go out into the world, but, there's a sect of people here today, a small sect in our society, just like you, who are here, and the Escobedo family, they're quite active, and I love all of them, and the thing about it is that we're looking at you. How old are you now?
40 years old, 41 and later this month.
And you're out here trying to help people, save people.
I'm just trying to play a part, to
No.
be in
Let's
service.
get off of that one over there. Let's get off that one. You're doing the job. And I would beckon to say, like I said, if you say one a day, you're
Yeah.
doing good.
Yeah.
And and I can look at you and tell you that you got spiritually, or you're a very powerful person. But you got a bad side to it too.
Let's talk about that. I'm interested to hear about it. Yeah.
You're one of these people who, once you want something, you go at it and you don't give a damn who's gonna tell you can't do it. You got that look in your face. And let me tell you something, being a chief in the Navy, I have been through millions of kids with millions of problems. So when I read you, and I understand. I'm looking at you, talking, you said, damn the torpedoes in full steam ahead.
No, you're right, Charles. Yeah, I mean, but that's part of my upbringing, sports.
Right.
The competitive edge that
Right.
seeps through me, but also just belief, confidence, as Eyez was saying. With what was it, a karate class?
Yeah, I took karate.
Once you start to see some success and you believe things are possible, like the same things that we're doing for these kids were done to me.
Right.
And so without my mentors, I wouldn't be sitting here with you talking about this, and
Right.
I wouldn't be living this life that I'm pretty happy to live. I really get a lot of joy out of doing this work, doing it with friends, doing it with, to me, seeing a kid glow and grow is one of the most exciting things in life, to actually just see them transform in front of your eyes, or to see somebody that started working with us at 11 actually get their own gigs now at 17 all around the Bay Area, and to be a part of that process, I think, is the most
Gives me hope
satisfying
in my
thing.
singing career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You're actually motivating people. You want to talk about Yoshi a little bit more?
I always love to talk about her. Yeah, she's such a
You got the
treasure.
mic.
What do you want to know about her? I mean, she's got
Personally,
quite a big...
she's dedicated. She's actually dedicated to the community.
What I can say about Yoshi, she's dedicated her whole life to the community and culture and art. So out of her house in Oakland, she teaches tea ceremony, calligraphy, flower arrangement. She has a Zen temple in her backyard, so she does open meditations on Sundays. And so her whole life revolves around art, culture, kind of this fusion of Japan and America, because there is some real wisdom out there in Japan and through Buddhism that I think we could all use, especially in the chaos of our lives here in the States, which is very opposite, say, I just got back from Japan, so the contrast is very stark in my mind. And a lot of it is just kind of this necessity to just sit back and breathe every now and again. Everything is happening so fast, and now with our kids, it's like everything is instant, right? Social media, it's like nobody's breathing anymore, and so everybody's reacting, and so you've got everything banging against each other, right? And that's what's so prominent to me when I come back from, say, Japan, where they have their own issues in society, but one of them is not they give each other space, and there's a level of respect I think that people have for each other that makes it very comfortable for me to travel there.
Okay.
Albeit there's some other, it's just a small slice of, I think, my overall experience in Japan. But it's coming back here, it's so combative, and it's not healthy for adults or kids. I mean, it's pervasive from kids up to adults. It's like, it's so hard to say, I'm wrong here. Oh, I made a mistake. Everybody's kind of fighting.
That's like a cardinal sin. Same eloquent place in life.
Yeah.
People don't say I'm wrong. You know what? Let me tell you something. You talk about Japan. 1965, 1967. I met a guy in SSK shipyards, and I was on the tender on a repair ship. 1969, I think that was 70. And I was learning international shipbuilding and administration, because that was one of the things that I did on my command. I ran should say I was on the team that ran military ship overhaul. And one of the things I learned, his name was Fukada. And I traveled all over Japan, all over Tokyo, and I'd ride the trains going, not knowing where the hell I was going. I just ride the train and go, you know. But one of the things is the character of the people and how they still respect each other. We don't have that.
I agree.
You know.
I agree, and I think it's a big problem. And you know, when we look at our society, it's a major issue to move forward with anything. You know,
Right.
with our issues politically or healthcare,
Socially.
education, socially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're such a new country, and everything was thrown together in some way. You know, I've always been confused. I mean, since, you know, among friends here in the mission, I've always been confused by the fact that, you know, white folks consider this, you know, like their land. Like, you know, like, because there were people here before
Exactly.
white folks,
Sure.
right? And
Yeah.
so what made them be able to say, I have dibs on this country here?
Pretty much. We're
Right.
still trying to figure that out too.
Right, right. And so that's how we started, you know, so it's starting a little imbalanced and unethical and not so true.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. Let me make you guys laugh. I lived in a little place called Moreau, M-O-R-E-A-U, Moreauville. But people say Moreauville, you know, it sounds like, you know. And Rayville, Delhi, Bastrop, you know, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. I lived in all those places. And when I lived in Moreauville, one of the things was they called it a cousin town. Everybody creeps over the fence. Every race, color, creed, sect, whatever you want to call it, religion, people were creeping over the fence with different people. So, you go there, and you go to cousin town, there's a few, Grand Coteau is another one. You go to these little bitty towns, and all these families, these huge families, Patan. When you see these people gather, you see all colors, shapes, sizes, configurations of people, you know, and their families. And that was the most invigorating thing, and I would like to see that come back. You know, because it said a lot. My friend, I won't mention his name on the air, because it might get back to one of his children, the four wives that he had. But he had Creole kids on one side and he had white kids on the other side of the Mississippi River. 17 kids all told. You hear me? And when he was getting ready to clock out of here, we were sitting at the hospital in Baton Rouge and we were looking at all these people named Dupree. I'm going, oh my God, this man's been finagling all over the place. But there was a certain respect. Nobody said anything vile. The four wives that he had, they all met each other for the first time. They all cried when he died. I'm going, look at that bastard laying in peace, you know. But it just goes to show you, I grew up with that sense that we're all here as one people.
Right.
You know, and that's what this Thoughts of a Common Man, the basis of this show is.
Yeah.
I'm a common man with a thought, and this is what we are trying to put out there. And having somebody like you again is just invigorating. That's a good word too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me feel good to see somebody like you who's out in the community. It's a good thing.
I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you all for creating this platform where we can
Yeah.
talk about these things.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
a good
that
thing.
should be applauded as well. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You know, because you're saying St. Thomas is traditionally black,
Yeah.
and you're there teaching these kids how to assimilate and go out into the world. And the islanders, they end up here eventually, a lot of them.
Right.
You know, so your work is good. And you know what I want you to do? I want you to stand on top of Mount Hamilton and tell people where the microphone is.
Talk.
Go.
Hi.
Go.
This is Thoughts of a Common Man Radio. Radio
Amen.
Valencia.
Amen. Mercy.
We've got 51 Oakland here.
Oh my God.
The Chief Charles Williams here.
Gina, the producer.
Everybody's here.
The whip cracker.
and our guest.
And the producer.
Tell everybody your name and your company again in case they're tuning in now.
My name is Jason Hofmann. I'm with 51Oakland.org. We promote public school music education during the school day and play a part in providing it.
That's really great. So what are some of the things that you do to help the kids? Do you give classes or lectures or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll break it down. I think there's three major facets to our work. One, we have resident artists, and so we go in and give master classes or consistent classes throughout the school year. Secondly, we do an inspirational speaker series. Coming to mind just here in the Mission District is I met Don Reed a number of years ago, who used to perform at the Marsh. He might still have a show going on.
Don Reed at the Marsh. He's
Yes.
been there a long time.
Yeah, that's right. Don Reed, is a board member of ours as well, one of the founding board members. And so we have people like Lettucey, Guapale, Don Reed, Kaylani, Pops, Sheila, all these inspiring figures that have done so much in their own respected art form, that come in and actually just give inspirational talks to auditoriums, assemblies at school. So we've got our resident artist program, we have inspirational speakers that we touch on as many schools a year as we can. And then we also have built a bridge from the school to the stage. And so we have youth now opening for major acts. We had two 13 and 14-year-olds open for the Pete Escovedo Latin Jazz Orchestra. And they were so good that now he's inviting them back every time. He called me the other day and he says, Jason, can we get those young ladies to open for us in July? I said, sure, Pops. And it just provides this experience. 13 and 14-year-olds opening for Pete Escovedo at Yoshi's, being a part of the process of sound check, seeing how Pops operates in that environment, the whole family, the marketing, the merch, what happens backstage, the experience on stage as you sound check, the issues that arise. They're getting this real life experience. So this was not something we had planned in the beginning, but we realized for those kids that have an affinity for music or art and can present something on stage with quality, then we provide those opportunities for them. So we've had kids performing on stage at the Fox, Yoshi's, Art and Soul Festival, Rockridge, Out and About, Temescal, every street fair in Oakland that you can know about. We've had stages at some point where we have professional musicians collaborating with student musicians. And to me, this is one of the best parts of our work, is because then outside of the school, we could teach a lot more life lessons through that process of communication, talking about kids these days, social media. Everything is changing, and I had a student that I got on to 2 songs when Sheila E. was headlining Art and Soul. And so I called the young man. I said, hey, I've got you as a guest artist for Sheila E.'s set. Oh, he was so excited. And I said, I'm going to send you all the information, what time you need to show up, when your sound check is, when the show starts, when you're expected to come on. Send him all the information. No response. So I see him the next day. I texted him, no response. I see him the next day at the festival, and I said to him, did you get my emails and texts? He's like, yeah, I got it, I'm here. I said, well, how do I know that you received it? This is a big deal. You're going on a big stage right now. And if I don't receive a response for you, my only assumption is I didn't get it, or you didn't get it. And, if I'm worried about whether you got something or not, then what happens when I get a call the next time, say from Michael Franti, who's requesting for a keyboard player to come with him, or Lettucey, or whoever? Am I going to think about you? He's like, yeah, you're right. And so now this young man, he responds within 5 seconds to anything I ever said. Because it made sense to him. Before that, he's like, oh, I got the email. I'll do everything that was asked. But he never thought about the communication. This is what we're talking about,
communication.
Yeah.
People, and also responding.
Yeah.
Very important part of the whole circle of communication.
That's
you
right.
have to respond.
That's right.
And this is where we're lacking as people, that we don't respond. Now, he didn't know to respond. He
Right.
just assumed. you know. And it goes back to that old thing, business is life and life is business. And speaking about Japan, I'll tell you what I learned. The biggest thing that I learned there. I used to live in the Hayama district, which was above Sasebo, okay? And I lived in this really nice house with two friends of mine who were married, and they were stationed there. And I lived in like this little cubby hole down at the bottom of the house. And one morning, I got up to run. And I would run 5 miles, okay, every day. Before I went down to the base, you know, to get on the ship, I would run 5 miles. One morning, I was running and I was booking, and this old man, I looked at him and he had this little shuffle and he was going through life. He was 85 years old, I found out later, you know. And I got around the curve, the second curve where I always rest. He was still running at a very slow pace. And he looked at me, he says, "Chief Williams." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You know the fable of the tortoise and the hare?" Impact is my point, and this is what you did to him when you talked about response. I responded right then, slow down. It put something in my mind. You put something in his mind, not only in his mind, but in his heart. Because 5 seconds is no time now, is it?
Yeah, and it's real world application, you know.
Right.
Because for kids, it's hard to separate what you're, you know, surrounded by in the school or with your friends, and then what happens when you get out of school, right?
Right.
It's a strange place for all of us to transition. And so I think today, I mean, they're, you know, talking about communication and our issues, both as adults and as, I think even, we don't even know how big of an issue this is going to become with, you know, the growing social media craze and how that affects the way we communicate
huge
with each other. So, you know, it's a concern, and so by having these events outside of school, it kind of allows you to build that bridge where everything that you've been promoting in school now that may go in one ear and out the other makes sense if they have some skin in the game. Like this young man, he wanted to be on that stage. And so he then can accept a lesson of communication because this is something he wants. And all he needs to know is what he should be doing. Because we can't expect these kids to know everything. He's never been through this process
Yeah.
before. And at the time, he was 12, 13 years old. So these are important lessons, especially when you're that young. And so for him to learn that and now to see him, I can't even hire him and his group anymore. They're so popular. I mean, it's crazy to me. They're all, it's a trio of 17-year-olds. And I'll give them a shout out, the Oakland Future Trio. If you need to book a young group of musicians and some amazing young men, they can play. And they've opened for Pops, they opened for our show with Sheila and Michael Franti and Wapale. And I'd also say this about their friends, this group called Minor F, two 13 and 14-year-old young ladies that are now getting requests all over the place because they put in the work and they can play. And so it's easier to teach these lessons around the stage sometimes than just in the classroom.
You know what? You're a giant. I'll go back to that again. How about that?
Oh.
You're a quiet, deadly giant. You get the program done. You get your message out there. You know, this is what we're talking about, and you're actually putting hope in people's. You know, there's very little hope in the inner city right now. You know that, don't you? It's sad, isn't it? You know, but there is very little hope. You know, and you're giving that hope. How does that make you feel?
Well, you know, I think I just like anybody.
And don't be so damn humble, okay?
No, well, but it's true. I mean, you know, it's hard for me to talk about myself, for one. But
I know, that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, but what I can say is that, yeah, these issues, they, you know, the issues that I see on the streets in Oakland, in my neighborhood, in the schools, in the Bay Area, you know, around the country, around the world, it can be really overwhelming. And so
Right.
it's hard, I guess it takes a certain level of self-care, you know, that we need to practice ourselves to be able to continue to move forward and stay motivated in this environment. it's an area that I struggle. There's no question that the work is so important to Yoshi and I, and to Sheila, and then Mabry, our other partner, along with all these other amazing community figures and musicians, that sometimes it's easy to lose steam when you're up against so much. So like you said, Eyez, it's going, I always get revived by seeing kids walking in the classroom or seeing one child progress, and it makes it worthwhile, and you're like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. Because sometimes you can lose sight of it. It's like you see all these problems and you're like, gosh, are we really making a difference here? And the reality is we are, but I think we're all built, at least in our leadership in the organization, to never feel like we're doing enough. I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the right way to be or not, because it certainly, maybe it's taken some years off my life that I don't know about, but it's a serious thing.
Life is not free.
Yeah.
But that's also what teachers do. Teachers do that. Like, they do get stressed. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm taking a class right now, like a dance class, and the teacher does not like giving us sheets of paper with words, because I don't want people to know the class, but it's a foreign type of dance. It's an ethnic dance. So, like, she doesn't like printing out the words and the translations, and it's like, we don't dance in front of a mirror, which is expected because the school that we're at, they don't want to help. But a real teacher is like, we know we don't get paid for paper, but we're gonna buy paper out of our own money. We're gonna bring pencils, erasers. They come prepared, and they come to make sure you get enough information. You know what I mean? They know that. No, they're not going to get help from anybody else. It's kind of like a natural thing. And there are some teachers who are like a mama bear, like, hey, what are you doing in here? These are my girls, you can't come in here, she's not like that. So your students can feel it when you're doing it. That makes them feel protected. That makes them feel confident and comfortable with you. Because, if you didn't care, like, you wouldn't be stressed out. But just know, they are looking up to you, and you
on
are
Radio
your
Valencia, the sounds of the mission.
Talk about that.
And we're back with Mr. Hoffman here, Mr. Jason.
Can we pass it back to Eyez? Because she was in the middle of promoting 51 Oakland, and I really like what I was hearing, so I'm going to pass this mic back.
You know what? That's an introcitation, whatever that means.
That's
good
the big
stuff.
word. I don't
He likes to make up words.
Oh, okay.
Introcitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good. It's very pleasant to the eyes and the ears too.
Yeah, and the ears, the eyes.
So
and the
you
ears.
guys go along with your dialogue, and I'm gonna sit here and look.
Well,
How
I
about
was just gonna say, like, encouraging the kid. Like, if you know someone in Oakland, call up the schools and say, "Is 51 Oakland gonna come to our school?" Because this is definitely something. I'm listening to some of these things, and I kind of wish that I had some of these opportunities, because the difference is, we get so caught up as singers and musicians as the actual art itself and not the business. Because whenever you take music classes, you learn about singing. So to actually have kids getting their start, opening up for stars, that's a big deal.
Thanks, Eyez. Yeah, it's a great experience, and even if they're not musicians, it gives them these life skills that are so important to succeed in anything.
Well, you know what? This has been very invigorating, and I like what I hear. 51 Oakland. That's synonymous with who we are, what we are. Going in Oakland as Oakland residents. I'm not an Oakland resident no more, but when you see, it's like blood running into a turnip, so to speak, okay? You get in there and you actually get out and you grow. Blood makes things grow. People say, what kind of analogy is that? Well, blood is life. Love is life. Compassion is life. This is who we are. And to see 51 Oakland out there, and parents, pass this broadcast around. I want you to know that you don't have to live hopeless in Oakland. Sobrante Park out there off of 63rd. See what's that, 69th, and in that area, by the Coliseum. that's devastating out there to go look at that area. But you know what? You don't have to live like that. You know, and I say again, people of the world raised me to be who the hell I am today. Crazy as hell, but you know what? People, you know, taught me life. And this is what Jason is doing right now. He's an emissary. I have just made him my emissary to your life. How about that?
Sounds like a big responsibility.
Put it on him, didn't I? You want to put your numbers out there again?
Yeah, website 51Oakland.org. We have a Facebook page you can go to that is shows more of our recent work. And then, yeah, just check us out at festivals. We have stages. Continue to support Yoshi's, which in itself is a nonprofit, just staying alive all these years. 51Oakland.org. Take a look at us. If you can afford to donate, we would greatly appreciate it. You'd be able to affect the lives of countless youth in Oakland. And we always invite folks that do want to make a serious donation to us, that they're welcome to come see the work, come into the classroom and see the power of the work. Because I think once you see what we're doing, it's a hard thing not to support. So I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you letting us, you know, speak about 51 Oakland and what we're so passionate about doing, not only in Oakland, but in San Francisco and throughout the Bay Area. But,
right.
You know, we got to get it right first, and then sustainable, and then we can move to the next spot.
Well, you know, I ran into a bunch of single parents. They were eating at Z's Cafe on 29th and Broadway here a couple of months ago, and Virginia Dayton was the lady's name. They kept calling her Virgie, and I kept saying, "Hi, Virgie," you know. And I went over and introduced myself. And you know, to all you single mothers out there, this is a program that, you know, will help you with, especially when there's no man in the house, or part of man, or a facsimile or a man. But anyway, getting off that hoopy loud. This is a program that seriously that you can look at getting your kids in here and getting them in an environment where it's a positive environment, because this is what we need in the inner city of Oakland. Am I right, guys?
Yes.
You want to give a comment?
My last thought is to just donate that $510
$5.10
Or $510.
or $510 to 51 Oakland. I think what they're doing is great. Eyez has her stamp on it. She thinks it's great. I think it's great. And I'm definitely going to tell, you know, I have musicians in my family, and I'm going to tell them about this great organization today. And I just want everyone to send their support out to this organization. They're doing great things within the community.
So what are you doing?
What am I doing?
What do you got going?
Oh, wow. This is really definitely shifting gears here.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm going to be performing at the San Mateo County Fair on June 12th. The State Fair.
California State Fair,
The
July 21st.
California State Fair, July
Sacramento.
21st in Sacramento. The Get Money, Stop Hating Tour, the Juneteenth event at the Caribbean City, June 18th. Now those tickets are kind of expensive, like $20, but you know, the fair, you know, you just get in, have a good time, you know, come stop off and see me. So that's what I'm doing.
Give me your website.
My manager's in the background, cracking that whip. My website is itseyez.weebly.com. I'm on Instagram /Miss Eyez, Twitter EYE39Z. I hope you guys visit me online. Find me. Okay.
And last but not least, this is Gina, the producer, and always I like to remind you to check us out on bossofacommonman.net, where you can find info about the chief, myself, and Eyez. And next week we have a little something different. We talk about everything. One week we might be showcasing a music artist. Another week we might be yelling at you about getting your finances into shape. Sometimes we just bring on good, talented people that we want you to know about, resources that we think will be helpful to the community. And on that note, next week we're going to have Allison Harris, who will get you into shape. And she's going to talk a little bit about heart disease, which got her into the profession. And on that note, we want to say goodbye, and we will see you next week.
Amen.
So long.
Jason Hofmann. Yeah, boy.